And let's turn our attention now to the climate change lunatics. Why? They certainly want the attention. They did at the U.S. Open. 2 protesters have been arrested after play at the U.S. Open was interrupted on Thursday night when they began shouting, and one glued his feet to the ground during a match at Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York. This is Exhibit A of the unhinged, insane climate change cult. Bonner R. Cohen, he is senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research. This is an organization that has tried to bring facts into the fiction of the extreme climate change agenda. They're oftentimes doing yeoman's work because they have to get through the din of the insanity, as we saw at the U.S. Open last night. Bonner joins us now to talk about, well, the world of extreme climate change viewpoints. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, and I hope you and the good people of Iowa and elsewhere are too.
Well, my feet are glued right here below my seat, Bonner. That's how committed I am to the world of radio broadcast. And apparently these folks at the U.S. Open are that committed to the insanity of their cult. And I can't think of a better word to describe this thing but a cult to do something like this at a national event. What sort of Kool-Aid are these folks drinking?
Well, they're drinking the Kool-Aid that has been spoon-fed them K through 12 through social media, through mainstream media, and whatever other outlets are out there. This is a narrative that holds human beings responsible for what the narrative claims is a potentially catastrophic warming of the climate. It was once referred to as global warming, then climate change. Mm-hmm. That morphed into climate crisis, climate emergency, or in the words of Al Gore, planetary emergency.
Existential threat. Don't forget that one.
Yeah, we can't forget that word existential because it's absolutely imperative that it be worked in one form or another. And all of this is our fault. Why? Because we use fossil fuels for our electricity, for our transportation fuel, and we use petroleum products from everything from pharmaceuticals to things that go in your iPhone, all sorts of other gadgets. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least if some product based on petroleum was contained in the glue that was used for these people to glue themselves to the tennis court last night.
Good point.
But, of course, the whole narrative is completely false. We are told that man-made emissions of greenhouse gases are artificially warming the climate, potentially catastrophic, and that urgent action needs to be taken. And so if you put that message out enough time into young, impressionable minds who very rarely see anything else, then don't be surprised if you have ridiculous things like this happening, or people blocking streets, holding up traffic, which, by the way, increases emissions because automobiles emit more when they're standing still.
True enough.
Running than they do when they're moving.
Yeah.
But you have seen attacks on works of art all around the world, in the U.S., in Britain, in France, in Germany, and elsewhere. Again, it's the same kind of people who have been brainwashed into believing something that is actually without any scientific basis whatsoever.
It is amazing to think about this, and we're joined this half hour by Bonner Cohen, senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research. The center has been doing great work in really going up against the climate change cult agenda and the falsities that keep being thrown out there. We have seen it play over and over again this summer with each new natural disaster, haven't we, Bonner? I mean,
we certainly have.
Canada, I mean, look at that. Canada, those wildfires, they all have to do with this climate change existential threat in front of us. We said the same thing in Hawaii with the wildfires there. And every hurricane or tsunami that's out there is all climate change. And what we learn from real scientists who are really doing a service here is saying, no, these are part of natural phenomenon that have occurred time immemorial. And then now we have how many hundreds, Bonner, of scientists coming out and saying, listen, climate change warriors, chill out. Here are the facts.
Yes, and those facts are vitally important. In reality, we're living in a time of relative climate stability. We're living actually in an interglacial period, which means we're living between the last ice age and the next one. We've had 17 ice ages over the course of the last 17 years. And stop and think about that. On 17 different occasions, the planet cooled off so much naturally that gigantic glaciers forming at the North Pole came south. In one instance, they came as far south as what is now the state of Kentucky. And again, on 17 different occasions, those glaciers and those giant ice sheets melted. All of that took place with absolutely no human input whatsoever. The term climate change is redundant. Climates always change. There was a time in the Earth's geological past when the entire planet was covered by ice. This is known as snowball Earth. Did that last? Yes, it lasted for a long time, but not for an eternity. Why? Because volcanic eruptions came along. They melted the ice, and bingo, we went back to a climate, in many cases, warmer than today's, such as during really recent times, during the Middle Age, known as the medieval warming, or back during the time of the Roman Empire. The people of Iowa, I think, would have a good understanding for the role that carbon dioxide, CO2, is said by the climate alarmists to be playing in all this. We're told that extraordinarily high levels of atmospheric CO2 brought about by the use of fossil fuels along with certain agricultural practices are responsible for the catastrophic climate change that we're undergoing now. Well, if you lower the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere, what will you do? You will reduce agricultural productivity. In fact, that will be effectively declaring war on all plant life around the Earth, which needs relatively high levels of CO2 to survive, and you're also declaring war on humanity. None of this plays into the narrative that these people are pulling out. I couldn't imagine anything more foolish, borderline criminal, than policies aimed at reducing CO2 levels. We've got 8 billion people living on the Earth. They have to be fed somehow. They're not going to be fed by solar panels and wind turbines. They're going to be fed by food that is grown by farmers who know their trade very well. And one of the things those farmers know is they have to have sufficient levels of atmospheric CO2 to produce crops. You mentioned the wildfires. We were told, including by the governor of Hawaii, that the recent very tragic wildfire in Maui was influenced by climate change. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of truth in that. What made it possible was complete incompetence of the state and local officials along with the local utility, all of whom ignored the growth of extremely flammable and very widespread non-native grasses in that area. That's an area that receives very little rainfall because it's on the leeward side of mountains that face the ocean. And all it takes is one carelessly thrown away cigarette or something else, and bingo, you have a conflagration on your hands.
Absolutely.
We were told, in keeping with the message that people who have a vested political and financial interest in putting out that this was climate change. Question: when was and where was the biggest and most deadly wildfire in U.S. history. Well, it was in northern Wisconsin along the border to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. The year was 1871.
Peshtigo?
That long ago. By the way, it coincided with a great Chicago fire, which happened about the same time, even though the two are completely unrelated. But the one in northern Wisconsin is estimated to have killed over 2,500 people.
Oh, yes. People thought it was the end of the world. They really did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Deadliest hurricane to hit the United States. It hit in Galveston, Texas, September 1900, 123 years ago, killed between 8 and 12,000 people. What we have today is we have buildings that are constructed in such a way that they can withstand these things, because this particular part of the world where we are, certain parts of it anyway, the southeast coast, the Gulf Coast, we have had hurricanes there since time immemorial. And we're probably always going to have them. There's been no increase in the number of intensity of Atlantic hurricanes, cyclones in the Indian Ocean, or any other kinds of tropical storms. The same actually holds true with tornadoes, which you occasionally get in Iowa. The number of tornadoes has actually gone down. Why has it gone down? We don't know. There's a lot about the climate we don't know. But what we do know is that our human influence on all the various climatological changes that the world has gone through and will continue to go through, that human influence in some cases was completely lacking because there were no human beings here to begin with, and what it is now is negligible.
So what you're saying, Bonner, the final takeaway is I can cancel the glue. I don't need to glue my feet down.
Absolutely.
And
you may need the glue to put a chair together that's falling apart or something like that.
Yeah.
But gluing yourself to a tennis court, not a good idea.
All right. Well, I'll cancel the plans and the Elmer's glue or what have you. So I guess the Gorilla Glue. Hey, thanks so much for, as always, offering some rationality, reason, and perspective into the climate change insanity cult that's going on out there.
To do it.
We need a break from the Kool-Aid, and you are a great antidote to that. Thank you so much. And
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hope to talk to you soon, my friend. You take care.
Thank you.
You bet. Bonner Cohen, he's been doing this for a very long time. He's been looking at the records for a very, very long time, and he has been doing tremendous work in going up against the climate change cult. Bonner Cohen is a senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research. Stay with us. I want to get your thoughts on all of this as well. 515-284-1040.